Hi, I'm Robin.
And I'm Bill.
Welcome to Not the Retirement Show. Today we're chatting about a subject that has inspired an awful lot of traffic on Facebook for us, and that is loneliness. If you missed it, we did an introductory video on the subject of loneliness a couple of weeks ago. And the videos that we're doing today are going to be short discussions that go into a lot more detail. As always, we're not medical professionals, so if we're talking about loneliness as it pertains to health, please make sure that you discuss all of these ideas with your chosen qualified medical practitioner. So to start, Bill, let's identify some of the effects of loneliness.
Well, I think you're right. The feedback that we received through all of our social media platforms was, quite impressive in some respects. And it was funny, because a lot of people had good points to make about loneliness. People had bad points to make about loneliness. And a lot of people offered suggestions about how you overcome loneliness. And that's kind of what we want to chat about today. But the effects of loneliness, obviously things like sadness, maybe even depression. If you're living on your own, just that feeling of nobody wants me, nobody wants to talk to me, nobody comes visit. Nothing. Maybe even including family. There are so many angles to that. And it's a very personal thing. In other words, one person can be lonely but happy, whereas another person can be lonely but sad, because it's personal. It's how do you feel? How does it impact you? But I certainly think that's sort of particularly in the retirement years when there is no sort of job to go to or anything like that, then sadness obviously kicks in.
I agree with you, but I think possibly you're making a key distinction here. There is a huge difference, an ocean of difference, if you will, between loneliness, which is a sad, overwhelming kind of sensation, and the art of being alone. Because there are some people who have spent most of their life alone and they're quite happy that way. There are other people who might have been in a very long-term relationship or family type situation, and finally towards the ends of their life they find that they have some personal space, some freedom, a lot of time by themselves, and they actually thrive in that sort of a scenario. So we're not all the same when it comes to loneliness.
Well, I think you raise a good point there, because if you, over the course of your life, if you've been used to having, someone else in the house, a partner, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, that partner is no longer there, then you're thrust into loneliness. So I think that's where the whole question of loneliness, it comes into play, because it could be security. You're just not secure living on your own for all these years. There's been someone else in the house. And I don't necessarily just mean physical security, in the sense of somebody breaking in or something like that. Although obviously that's part of it. But just the security of having someone else around, that light bulbs go out and say, oh my goodness, I'll have to go fix it. Whereas perhaps before somebody else was there and, somebody else would do it. That's all part of, I'm not necessarily sure that the word security is the be all and end all word, but I think you get my drift. It's that feeling of, okay, I'll have to do it myself because there's no one else around. And sometimes for certain types of things, people just feel a little bit insecure or just a little bit wobbly, perhaps, if that's a better word.
Well, you're raising an excellent point here, because this concept of loneliness, it really all boils down to how are you perceiving your situation. If you are perceiving the fact that you are by yourself in a negative way, in a fearful way, in a sad, depressed way, and all you're dwelling on and thinking about are the what you've lost, the challenges you're facing, the things you don't have, well, of course, That's going to seem very, very overwhelming. There is another way to look at the situation you now find yourself in. You can actually take out a piece of paper. How often do we say that? And start listing off for yourself the benefits, the good things about your situation, whatever they may be. They could simply be, I don't have to cook unless I'm hungry. I don't have to wash the dishes for making this big complicated meal because somebody else wanted it. I can wear the same shirt 3 days in a row if I want to. It's just me and the dog. He doesn't mind. I can go out when I want to. I can come home when I want to. Okay, I'm getting into a level of minutia detail here, but you get the idea.
Well, I think it comes down to companionship. I mean, I think that's perhaps the better word, that, everybody craves some form of companionship. Now, again, there are various levels of that. There's 724 companionship, or there is, companionship only when you go out for a coffee. It'd be nice to see somebody, but if I don't see them this week, so what? So there's all sort of varieties of companionship, but I think that's one of the words, because I mean, we're talking on the one hand about loneliness, and then on the other side of that is a question of companionship.
But that brings up the issue of the right kind of companionship for you at whatever point you are in your personal journey that we call life. There's an old joke out there, the more I learn about people, the more I like my dog. Sometimes really all you're going to find that you needed was to get a dog or a cat or a bird or a hamster, someone to talk to who always thinks that you have interesting things to say and never wants to argue about when it's mealtime.
Well, earlier on there, you talked about health, and clearly that is one aspect of loneliness, because can it affect your health, both your physical health and for that matter, your mental health? Yes, absolutely, it can. And I think, as we always say, one has to address these sort of things. One has to face up to these sort of things that perhaps, the health factor is a little bit more important, a little bit more critical than perhaps you give credit for. And I'm not necessarily saying you're going to necessarily go and seek medical help, but I mean, don't disregard the fact that, your sleeping habits can change, your eating habits can change. As you say, instead of eating at dinner at 7 o'clock every night, as we've done for the last 300 years, you can choose to, eat at 4:30 or 9:30. That's all fun and it's exciting, but as long as you're careful and conscious of or monitoring your health, so that if there is, if there's some health issues, be careful as to what is causing that health issue. That's obviously where you speak to your medical practitioner. I accept that. But the loneliness factor inside of the health factor, is not to be overlooked.
Here's the bottom line with loneliness. It might not be your fault at all that you have arrived in this situation. It could all be due to circumstances that were completely beyond your control. But the tricky bit is this situation that you're finding yourself in isn't going to change unless you change it.
Yeah, I think that's right. and as we always say, circumstances change and you can change your mind. We always think that's one of the biggest aspects of being in the retirement years, is that it's your choice, it's your life, you can do what you want, within reason, but you can change your mind. A lot of people seem to think that they're in a box. You're not. It's your life, you want to enjoy it, therefore you can change your mind.
Well, if you're still watching, we must have said something interesting or helpful, so please make sure you subscribe to our channel, and we'll chat with you again soon.